introduce a gentleman who I've become acquainted with. I'd like to call him a friend, and hopefully by the end of the podcast, I'll get to refer to him as my friend. Um, I've been following his story for probably a year now. And even though he is located in the United Kingdom, um, his his story is something that I think needs to go way beyond the UK. And he's got a tremendous amount that he's doing and giving back. And as a retired professional athlete, and we're going to explore it, um, it's nice to see that even when a professional athlete steps away from their profession, they still are actively engaged in giving back to the community in philanthropic endeavors and trying to really put out positive messages. And I, we're going to explore all these things. So, my guest today is Keith Mason. And Keith is over, and if I'm not mistaken, you're in Leeds, right? You're over in Leeds.
I'm from a town called Dewsbury in West Yorkshire, which is about 8 miles out from Leeds. I'm now based in East Yorkshire, which is a lovely little town called Howden. So, yeah, I'm a Yorkshire lad.
He's a Yorkshire lad. And, I always explain to people, when I travel around the country and I travel internationally and I'm giving lectures, I always try to explain to folks that I'm from Georgia. Okay. And we have our own way of speaking. We have our own little terms. We have our accents. And, it's going to be fun to kind of go through some of these because I'm going to try to make sure I'm understanding some of the specific terms that you're using. But Keith, it really is a pleasure to meet you in person, to have an opportunity to talk to you, to share your story, and to really introduce you to so many more people outside of the UK. So again, thanks for being here.
No, you're welcome. You know what? I've not done a podcast in a long time. I don't really over dilute myself, to be honest with you, and go on to all these. I see a lot of people doing a lot of podcasts and that, but I don't really do that much, Sean. So you're quite lucky that you've got me. Uh, I have been quite busy writing my autobiography, which comes out next month. So that will be out worldwide, and the title is against all odds. So my life has pretty much been that, against all odds, of me becoming a professional sportsman from being a young kid, from being a persistent youth offender. Getting kicked out of 5 schools. Living up on a council estate, being raised by a single mom. All these things were, all stacked against me. But I think when life hits you hard, man, it's not about like Stallone says, it's not how hard you hit, it's how hard you hit back, and how you get back up, and how you keep moving forward. And life is tough, and you have to accept it. You have to accept that there's going to be challenges, and I think over time you build a resilience of every time you get knocked down, you get back up. You're building this fortitude inside of you that can't be beaten, and I think for me, love is right at the top of that list, because the softer you are. I mean, it takes a lot of pain and adversity for you to become actually a kind and soft person. You know what I mean? And there are a lot of people out there who are angry, but for me, I just want to, I want to love the people in my life. I want to help as many people as I possibly can, and I want to leave a mark. And it's not just about me. It's about my children. It's about my friends. It's about them poor young kids who can't look after themselves. It's about me helping them.
I think that's amazing. And, so staying on that topic of helping the children, I want to talk about your philanthropic endeavors with the Tafita Rakib Foundation, and with so many other foundations out there, with so many other charities that are available. You focused so much on this one. And as a matter of fact, we actually made the Tafita Rakib Foundation an official charity of my other podcast for an entire month. And I know they reached out to me and were grateful, and we brought a lot of exposure to them. But let's talk about what the Tafita Rakib Foundation is and why it's so important to you and why it should be so important to everybody around the world.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for that, Sean, because that was something off your own back, and that's a bit of a rarity to see, and I really appreciate that, brother. And I can see that you were in the Mason merch today, which I like to see. But yeah, I mean, like Tafita Riki Foundation it's about Tafita is actually the little girl who was very, very poorly. Her mum, who was a lawyer, Shalina Begum, she came home. They'd been out on a night out, and she came home, and the little girl woke up about 3 a.m. in the morning. She had a really bad headache, and the mum had to ring the ambulance, had to ring the hospital. So what happened is, there must have been a blood vessel popped in her brain, and she was in a lot of pain. The little girl, God bless her, and they went to the first hospital. The hospital couldn't do anything for the little girl, so they transferred her to another hospital. Then they went to St Albans, and then went to another hospital. And by the time they got her to the right hospital, she was pretty much near enough brain dead, which is not completely. But you know, the fact is, the lady went to court. What happens in these situations? These kids, when they have a brain injury like this, whether they fall off or they have an accident, or it just happens by, them going to sleep and waking up and having a seizure. They kind of tell them to switch the machine off. The doctors have the final say, and 99% of the time, these children get put to sleep. Shalina Begum, I believe, was the first woman in history. She's got a lawyer background to actually win the case, and she had the opportunity to take her daughter out the UK to Italy, where she's been in an hospital room now for the last 4 years with her little girl. Wow. Now, she reached out to me. She said, "Look, we'd love you to come on board as an ambassador," and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the story she told me about her being in, not leaving a child's side. And obviously, we've both got children. Children are our heart, you know what I mean? The precious little souls, they're the most innocent things on the planet. And it did break my heart, but then it made me think, I want to make a difference here. I want to do as much as I possibly can. And, that's what I love, Sean, and that's why I brought the Mason merchandise out, my product to the foundation. And I'll continue to help and support the foundation.
Yeah. So as Keith was mentioning the Mason merchandise, I actually am wearing the Mason hooded sweatshirt. I actually have on the jogging pants today as well. I'm wearing the gray ones. I actually believe it, and I'm telling you, these things are incredibly comfortable. They're made really well. It's starting to get a little bit chilly here, so I got my Mason beanie hat ready to roll. But why did I decide that I wanted to share about the Mason merchandise is because 100% of the proceeds that are generated from the sale of this merchandise goes to his charity. And I mean, folks, think about this. Some some clothing manufacturers, some professional athletes, and I'm getting a lot of different professional athletes from around Major League Baseball, the NFL, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. They give a percentage. Randy Couture, who was my very first guest on this new podcast, gives 100%. Some give, different percentages. But to me, this is something I can get behind. And I want the hundreds of thousands of followers that I have of my podcasts to recognize the good that is coming from the purchase of this merchandise. And I swear, I pray that, Keith and his foundation see a tremendous spike in the merchandise after this program and for the weeks and months and years to come. We're going to make sure that we put a link to the Mason merchandise onto the podcast description. So all you have to do is click the link and you can go right to the website and you can make your purchase there. Mine came from across the pond, and it actually got to me faster coming from across the pond than it does coming from here in the US.
Do you know what's the funny thing? You might not know this, but the distributor is actually in the USA, so it'll come to you faster.
Ah, even better. So I'll make sure that I put some images up onto the website for y'all and get you a link. So Keith, I want to talk a little bit about the healthcare system in the UK because, here in the US, we have kind of a complexity of healthcare services, right? We have a lot of folks that are pushing for socialization. They want us to have a one payer program, but we still have, a free market here with commercial insurance, private insurance companies. Um, but, can you talk a little bit about, because you said something very, very interesting to me, where in the UK, the physician has the final say. But can you talk a little bit about what's going on over there with some of the healthcare services? Because again, being involved in something like you are with your foundation, you're seeing a lot of this firsthand, right?
There's not. I just think first of all, I mean, the government's not funding for these very poor children. I've got a very good friend last year, a little grandson, Daniel Green, who you saw the other day. He's suffering with mitochondrial disease, and he's not getting the help. He's not getting no money. He's getting no funding for the little boy to be even in school. I mean, this kid's not even in school. Also with the foundation, it's having to take someone like me to help raise millions of pounds to help build these hospitals for these kids, the second only hospital in the UK. Obviously, you've got the national insurance. You pay your national insurance for your healthcare, but you're hearing about people literally going into A&E, and they're in there for 24 hours before they get seen. It's ridiculous, honestly. And I know the healthcare you've got to pay a lot of money in America, but
Oh yeah.
I don't think it's not the nurse's fault. I just think it's the people at the top. They need to make better decisions to help these children, because it's just not fair.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And being an ambassador and being a voice for the children who oftentimes don't have their own voice to be heard, I think it would be great at some point to get you in front of Parliament and for these individuals that are making horrible decisions or not making any decisions at all because they're good with the status quo, to hear from somebody who is going into these hospitals, who's sitting at the patient's bedside, who's sitting with the patient's family, holding their hands, praying with them, giving them hope that somebody's listening. Just like our Congress over here in the US, somebody needs to get these people to pay attention and to pay attention quickly because these children are needlessly suffering.
Yeah, well, I think I think the higher I get, in the film world, and the more people get to know me. I mean, the film is actually out in America now, so you can actually watch it. I don't know if you've watched it, Sean. Have you watched it, The Punished?
I have not seen it yet. I'm going to, I promise you. And as soon as I do, I'm going to publish a whole thing about it.
Please. I mean, I produced this film from scratch. I worked with a young director. He was about 18 years old at the time. I brought a team in. Most of these people have never even acted in their life, and I just said, "Listen, just remember your lines and don't blink." But it took me 10 years, Sean, to get a role like this. It's only a small budget film, but from 10 years ago when Mickey Rourke gave me the call and said, "Look, kid, do you want to be in a movie?" And I just said, "Yeah, sure." I didn't know what I was doing. You know what I mean? I'm not an actor. I was a professional athlete. I ain't got a clue, but I know I learned 13 lines, and I had to pretend to be an henchman and do what I did, and I enjoyed it. And like I said, 10 years, man. People don't see the grind from, jumping on buses, 5 hours to London, 5-minute audition, 5 hours back. I did that for 3 or 4 years and never got a gig. So, the one thing is with me, I will persevere and I will keep going until I get until I win, basically. And I think that's a God-given talent, and I think it's because of my childhood of having gifts and being talented, but like I am a walking contradiction. I won't really supposed to be doing any of this stuff. To be honest with you, I probably should be in jail or worse.
You know, and that brings me to your faith. I know you have a tremendous faith. You're a God-fearing person. I watch a lot of the posts that you put out there. I see how people are reacting, and it's interesting because, here in America, you know, in the current state of how things are, for people to talk about God who are, public figures, who are Hollywood actors, sometimes they get shunned. And sometimes, because things have gotten very woke, I guess is the term that people like to use, right? So if your message isn't in line or in sync with what they believe, then they want to try to cancel you. And I've seen a lot of your messages where you talk about staying strong, being true to yourself, sticking to your convictions, giving, your glory to God. You know, you talked about your early youth in that you're a walking contradiction, as you said, and that you probably should be in jail for, some of the things that have gone on. But at what point did things turn around for you? And was it your faith? Was it you finding God that really helped you transform into the man that's sitting here today?
I think I was always I wasn't a troublemaker as a kid. I was just around a lot of trouble, uh, and I guess I was a follower, but I was a kid. I could look after myself. You know what I mean? I always looked after my mates, and I got myself into a lot of trouble. A lot of fights, and I did dodge a lot of bullets, and I've got to look back and think, was that just me, or was God protecting me? And the things I've done since being a youth offender, nearly going to jail, over 40 court appearances, uh, and gone to do what I've done. After all that, I think it was so important for me to write my life story against all odds, because this is going to show kids that you don't have to come from privilege. You can come from nothing, and you can still overcome it as long as you have true intentions in your heart, and you just own who you are, and that's who I am. I'm a man, and I'll be that way till the day I die. I'll be honest. I'll be open. I have messed up many times in my life, and I'm still a work in progress. But the day I came out of Crown Court, my friend, this was for burglary, and I was 14 years of age. I was too young to be sent to jail. And I remember, my brother was, he was he's a functional alcoholic. He's 12 years older than me. And my sisters struggled with drugs. And my mum's had a lot of heartache, there's 5 of us. And I just felt like I was going to be the next kid to break her heart. And I just felt like I can't do that to my mum. I can't do this no more. She doesn't deserve this. She brought me up. Strong woman. She gave me everything she could give me. And it's time for me to return the favor. And when I walked out of court, it was like I had an epiphany. It's like I had this voice in my head saying, "This is it. This is it. There's nowhere else for you to go." And I truly believe it was like a voice in my head, like it was God, to say, "You have to make a sacrifice. You have to go after your dreams." And the one thing I was good at was rugby. So what are you going to do about it? And the very next day, I cut all my friends off. I used to smoke weed. I stopped smoking weed, and I used to start running. And I'd go onto the rugby field, and I'd get a tire and a rope, and I'd do sprints for hours in the pissing down rain. And then I get a boxing bag, and I tackle this boxing bag round the field in the thunder and lightning. You can actually move it, but it'd be like a film if you filmed it. I had this vision that I wanted to be a professional rugby player, and all around me were all this negativity, all this, nah, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do that. And I just had this fortitude to just prove everybody wrong. And you know, I definitely think God had something to do with that. And I think he's got me through many, many things, because the thing is, what I do is I humble myself, and he tells me to love people. And I think love conquers all. And I think Jesus Christ is like, you know, he's the man. And I'm not ashamed of putting Jesus on a pedestal. He came to earth to save the sinners and not the saints. And he could have took everybody out if he wanted to. You know, even on the cross when everybody betrayed him, he still asked God to forsake him. I mean, phew, what a guy. And you know, you see all this demonic stuff going on in the music industry, and it's just plain to see everywhere right now. You know what I mean? As long as I stay true to who I am, you know, I've got big goals and ambitions. You know, not just as an actor or you know, ex-sportsman, but I do get more from leaning into God, because you will be humbled. You just be careful what you say as well, because you know, you see a lot of these people, you know, denouncing God, and you know, and I just think they're lost people, very lost people, and one day you will be judged, and you know, you got to humble yourself and get your hands and knees. I'm not ashamed of that at all, because I've been to some dark places, man. You know, I've been to hell, and I'm here, and I'm still going, and I'll always put Jesus on top of the pedestal. So.
And I love hearing that because, you know, I think this is where we are right now in this world, not just here in the US, not just in the UK, but around the world. And I think we're coming to that crossroads where people are going to have to make that determination and that decision to either turn left or to turn right. And, you know, God is always going to guide you. He's, you know, all forgiving, and he's the all powerful. And it doesn't matter what God you pray to, whether you know, you pray to Buddha, whether you pray to Allah, whether you pray to Jesus Christ, whether you it doesn't matter. You know, find faith. Give your faith to something bigger than yourself and let that guide you on your journey. And I think honestly, you know, that's what's missing right now is people wanting to believe in something good because we
Yeah.
see all of this nonsense. We hear all of this noise on the mainstream media, on radio about how, you know, angry everybody is, how divisive the world has become. And, you know, when I really think about it, because I get to travel so much, like you, and I know you're heading to, you know, you just came back, if I'm not mistaken, from Ireland, where you did a grand opening of a art gallery, which I thought was so cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I get an opportunity to speak to people who are from around the world. And I get to speak to people, you know, because of the businesses that I own who come from different walks of life. They, you know, they are a different skin color from me. They are a different nationality, a different creed, a different, dare I say, sexual orientation. And what I always find is people aren't defined by those things. They're defined by what's in their heart. They're defined as, you know, that story, like you said, that story that they're writing about their life and the legacy that they're trying to build. I don't believe that the world is such a bad place. I believe there's a small percentage of people who are not good in their heart, probably because they don't have God guiding them.
Yeah. Yeah, in some cases that's true. In some cases, I think a lot. I think a lot of people are very hypocritical, to be honest with you, because I think people from different, you know, pick and choose which religions to follow and which gods to follow, and then use that as an excuse for their bad behaviour. I just feel like, you know, I feel like we need to get back into nature, everybody, and get back into, you know, for me, these last 18 months since I, you know, broke up from my ex-partner, we were together for 6 years, and I helped the lady. She was paralyzed. I helped her walk, and her story was very inspiring. And my stepchildren, and I don't see them no more. So there's been a lot of soul searching for me and for my children, and I think it's been tough. But you know what? It's like our struggles develop as strengths, and storms only make us stronger, man. And to be honest with you, I learned more into God over these last 18 months than I've ever done in my whole life. And I think it comes a time in your life where you've got to get away from all the noise and get back to earth, get back into nature, walk on the grass with your bare feet and just pray. Yeah, I find it peaceful, me, man. I do like to spend a lot of time on my own. I do. I love being with my kids and my friends, and I'll go to the restaurant around the corner. My manager and my friend owns an Italian restaurant, and I eat there 5 days a week. It's lovely. But honestly, just get away from all the noise and get back into peace and get back aligned in with God, and things will start happening for you, man. I just have faith and believe in yourself. But there's so much nonsense going on. I just can't take any of it serious. Honestly, it's like watching a sitcom on a drama on TV. It's just a lot of it is just talk and no action.
Well, I wanna get to a more positive place now. We kinda went dark for a minute, but I think people are gonna see the light at the end of that discussion, right? Because really what got me first recognizing you was your story with, your former partner, and I'm not gonna go down that road, but it was such an inspirational story. And, I know she had spinal strokes, and,
Yeah.
you really were there for her as a therapist, and, helping her to be able to walk again. And I did. My wife, if she was here, she would tell you that story genuinely put a tear in my eye,
Yeah.
because watching somebody go through what she went through and having somebody to guide her and to help her get back to the place where you were, and irrespective of why the relationship no longer exists, that doesn't matter. It was a point in your life that drove you to where you are now, and it helps you to reflect. But I want to get to a really positive place, and that's your son, because I've thoroughly enjoyed watching your son, grow into this, rugby player in his father's footsteps. I know it makes you extremely proud. He had an incredible season, that just recently ended. Unfortunately, they didn't get to make it to the next round, but your message to them at the end of the season, which was, "Hey, listen, lads, you gave it your all. You had a great season as a team, and it's setting you up for future success. Hold your head high, be proud of what you have achieved, and great things are coming for you down the road." So let's talk a little bit about your son and sort of where things are going with him.
Well, like obviously, I played 14 years at the highest level in the English Super League and the NRL. And when I came back from Australia, I played for Melbourne for 2 years. Went out to Melbourne, played for the Melbourne Storm. Signed for them at 19. I was the youngest ever English player to go over to England and to make my debut. Uh, and if you think just a couple of years before that, I was studying court, ready to go to jail. So it's mad how how tables can turn. When you just really get focused and disciplined and you work your ass off. And so I was there for 2 years, and obviously St Helens, who were the Premier team in England, came in to sign me. They wanted my services. So I ended up leaving Melbourne. I had a fantastic time in Melbourne. Played with some of the greatest players of all time. I came back to St Helens, and that's where I met Lucas's mummy, Danielle. And we didn't last. We lasted a couple of years. Then we split up. And obviously Lucas came about. Lucas was just like my little mini me, and all the way through my career, probably, I retired 2013, so 10 years ago. So Lucas would have been 5 years old when I retired. But he came to Wembley to watch me. He was in that environment. When I played at the Huddersfield Giants, he'd come and he'd be tackling the boys and he'd be beating them up in the back. And now the boys are seeing him on the verge of being a good professional rugby league player, and obviously he's on the rise up. And I'm just, I've made a lot of mistakes from my career, but I was a good player. I played the game hard and I played at the highest level and played for my country. Won trophies in the Challenge Cup and in the league. And Lucas wants to follow suit, and I'm just, I'm his biggest fan. But he is pretty special. I've got to admit, I'm not. I can't go on. I've been told by Wigan I can't go and start talking about him. He's been playing first team for Wigan, he's going to do this and do that. Look, he's on the right path. He's doing tremendously well. I'm so glad that I've got a child who has drive to be an athlete. It's very rare. I even said to my son, like, you're in a very rare position here that you've even got a drive to want to be the best you can possibly be and play in a professional sport, because not everybody gets the chance to do that. A lot of people are working 9 to 5, and I'm just following his career now. He's had a great first season as an academy player in the back row. I think he was the top scorer, top try scorer as a forward. He's been outstanding this year, and I'm looking forward to following his journey, and hopefully he can do what his dad did.
Yeah, I think it's tremendous. And, for folks who don't understand the sport of rugby, I got introduced to it on a trip to Hawaii with my wife. And um, for for folks who don't realize this, can you talk about how massive a game it is for Australia and New Zealand when they get together? Because you were there, you played.
Yeah, it's well, you think about it. I mean, it's probably the toughest sport in the world. You've got the boxing.
Yeah.
I mean, but the thing is, we don't wear pads. I mean, I calculated. I spoke in my autobiography about this, that I've had up to 20,000 collisions, and every collision in rugby league scientifically proven that it equates to a mini car crash. So there's probably some brain damage going on in my head. I probably, when I really struggled when I retired. I struggled with depression and all that kind of stuff, because what happens is your body's so primed to physical contact. When you finish the game, it's like, what am I supposed to do now? I mean, obviously I know it's routine, but I was a type of player that never took a backward step. I was kind of like an enforcer, what my coach called me, an enforcer. I would belt people like you have enforcers in ice hockey and stuff like that. I was that type of guy, right? Yeah. So I was lucky to keep my looks, by the way. But I out the way, and there's certain little techniques you've got to use, to be able to protect your boat race, basically. But yeah, I mean, the game is tough, and I want to make sure that Lucas is protected and he's got the right people around him. He's got an agent, Kevin Brown, who was my teammate for years, and he's known Lucas since he was a little boy. Now Lucas is 6'2" and 220 pounds. He's only getting big.
He's a big boy.
Yeah, but he's very athletic, and he's got he's very skilled, got a good engine, and he's only getting better. So it is a tough game for him to go into, but I feel like I can be a mentor to Lucas, and I know he's going to make me proud. It's probably going to make me cry a couple of times over the next 10, 15 years, because he's a different kettle of fish, and I think he's just only getting better.
That's awesome. So you were talking about keeping your good looks, being in the movies. Listen, I think it's great, and I've watched as you've continued to build your brand and to gain followers, and you post about your workouts and your motivation and things that you're doing to keep people going. But being in the movies now and being an actor, you had your first major motion picture. It was a smaller budget movie, but it still got great reviews over in the UK. It's here in the US now. If I'm not mistaken, I know you're working on your next movie, if
Yes,
I'm not mistaken.
The
But
Chosen.
I've also heard some rumors that, maybe a James Bond movie may be in your future.
Well, listen, I wouldn't say no to the role, but listen, whoever gets it, all the best to them. But I feel like Jack hunting down a serial killer, a vigilante serial killer. But the role for me had everything in it. You know, he suffers with mental health problems, he suffers with alcoholism, depression, and at times I've been that guy, so I could tap into those stuff. I could tap into that character, and I'm looking forward to. Obviously, you're going to watch the film. Let me know what you think of the film. But it is
Absolutely.
my first lead role in a film. It's a small budget. It's filmed in Yorkshire, in Halifax, and you know, I've just landed another role to play in The Chosen, which is again, I'm playing an Irish detective who's hunting down a child murderer with a very, I mean, my character's got a very dark past, and you've got, you know, Mickey Rourke, who's agreed to come on board. You've got Greg Brick. We're looking at Cole Meany. This is a much bigger production, but you know, I'm just, like I said, I've done the road work, you know, like for 10 years with nothing, and then all of a sudden, you know, little things start happening, and just like anybody out there, if you're, you know, chasing your dreams, just don't give in, man, because it could take 10, 15 years before you even get a.
Listen, good things happen to good people. I fully believe that. But I'll tell you, while you're looking at building your cast, you may want to talk to Randy Couture. He just came off of his fourth filming in the franchise The Expendables with Sylvester Stallone and Jason Statham and Dolph Lundgren. So I know Randy's always open to looking at different roles, and he's a fantastic human being.
I'm happy for you to introduce us. If you want to CC us through an email, I'm a big fan of
Yeah.
Randy, was Mr. America, and yeah, amazing
Yep.
guy. With those fighters, when the same again, he's an underdog. You know what I mean? He's
Yep.
backward, and I have massive respect for any fighter that goes in that cage.
Well, I will send an email when we're done here today, and I'll introduce you to Randy Couture and let you guys kind of talk through maybe getting him on board. He knows Mickey Rourke well. You know, Mickey Rourke was in the first two Expendables with, you know, Stallone and that whole cast and Terry Crews. So I'd love to be able to, you know, make that introduction, open the door, and hopefully something works out well for you guys. Um,
Appreciate
the the last question that I have for you, because again, I know you've been extremely gracious with your time, and I know you got a lot going on. And as you said, I'm a very lucky man to get you on my podcast. Um, last question for you: where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
I feel like I've been doing a lot of good things in this world. I feel like probably the whole world is going to know who I am as an actor. I believe that the more people know me as a performer, the more people I can help. Uh, you know, obviously, I want my brand to grow, Mason Merch. I want that to grow. I've also got my watch line as well. I forgot to mention that, guys. Come on, I've got my.
I saw that. That's right.
Give me a second. So we're talking away here, but I have also got my own watches, Mason watches. Here they are, guys. So
Very nice.
some very nice ones here. But anyway, yeah. Thought I'd throw
Well,
that in.
make sure you send me a link to where people can get the watches,
Yeah, of course.
and I will make sure. Yeah, I'll make sure I include that in the link with the Mason merchandise for the clothing. Um, Keith, I want to say thank you so much
Yeah,
for you.
I would
Go
just
ahead.
say, next 5 years, you know, I see myself as an established, you know, actor, and then, you know, I want to travel the world. You know, I want to, you know, see my children grow, and just to be a success, and to be a good civilian who's out there to help people rise, and inspire people, because like I said, I'm a walking contradiction. You know, where I came from, I shouldn't really have made it. My story's a bit like a Rocky story, but I'll keep pushing forward, and I'll keep inspiring, and you know, try to live my best life. But the thing is, listen, guys, you know, some days are bad for me, some days aren't great. You know, I do suffer with mental health sometimes, and a little bit of depression here and there. But that's normal. It's life. It is life. Life is tough, but sometimes you need to get your hands on knees and pray. So, yeah. So thank you.
Man, so refreshing to hear somebody who's willing to be so open and honest and transparent about, what they go through in their daily walk and, how they cope with it, how, you turn, you know, you put things in God's hands and you get on your knees, you pray, you're thankful for what you have, and you give back, more importantly, to those who are less fortunate than you, and you make sure that they have a voice when nobody else is raising the voice for them. So for that, man, I salute you, I commend you, and I'm serious when I say this. We've got to get you in front of Parliament because they need to hear what's going on, and they need to hear it from somebody on the front lines.
Well, like I said, I think the higher I get in the entertainment business and everything else, I think the more of a chance that's going to happen. So I will keep working my ass off, and let's see what I'm in 5 years.
All right, man. Well, we're going to continue to follow your story. I can't wait to see your autobiography when it comes out next month. Make sure you get me a copy.
Yeah, it's coming out the 9th of November. We're going to be launching the book in Ireland, near Belfast, in a castle called Crom Castle, which is quite
Wow.
ostentatious, but it is what it is. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to people to seeing the book, reading the book. It's going to be a book what's going to inspire kids. Will inspire kids, inspire people in general, and just show people that we can overcome anything. But you can never give up, and you've got to keep rising up no matter what.
Absolutely. When the book launches on November 9th, make sure you reach out to me and I'll make sure that we get it published as well out here on the website so people know where to go to get it. It's Against All Odds with Keith Mason. Again, as I said, we'll introduce you to the Mason merch, the Mason watch line. Again, the proceeds that he gains are going to the charity, which, folks, you can't beat that. So, again, you've been extremely gracious with your time, with your willingness to come on. I know it took me almost a year to get you to agree to come on to the podcast, but here you are, my friend. I can't thank you enough. And I think the folks who are getting an opportunity to watch this podcast and to either listen to it on Apple or Spotify or Google or whatever they listen to us on, I think they're going to walk away from this with, hey, you know what? I need to take that same walk that Keith Mason took because he's finding himself in a much better place now that he's taken that walk. So, with that said, Keith, thank you so much for being on the program today. I can't thank you enough. And I wish you all the best in life. I wish Lucas all the best on his endeavors for his professional rugby career. And I will let you know as soon as I watch that movie this weekend.
Thank you very much, brother. Give it a rating.
All right. All right. To each and every single one of you who tunes in, logs on, and hangs out with me for a little while with my special guests, thank you all so much. We're excited for it, and we're going to be back next week with another great guest on the Georgia Gentleman podcast. So until then, remember, be good to yourself, but more importantly, be good to each other.